Hey, it's Dave Wyman. Time for Football 101. Hope you've been listening to the Wyman and Bob show. We've talked a lot about something we don't want to talk about, and that's moving on from some of the older players and whether that's going to happen or not. I hope they can keep everybody, and moving on. There's been some talk about Bobby Wagner and Wright, and both of those guys who I love and have just been, as a matter of fact, I've called it, since 2012, I've called it ABR, which is after Bobby and Russell. Because remember, in 2012 is when they started to really, when Pete got here, it was his third year with John Schneider, they started to really get the players that they wanted to get. And Bobby and KJ were a huge part of that. I'm hoping both will be back. But if, money, because Bobby makes $18 million, I think KJ wants to be paid. If they have to move on or they decide to move on from him, I was just looking at some of the younger linebackers, and shoot, I've probably done Football 101, 3 times on Jordan Brooks now, but he has just been an absolute revelation as far as a late round, first round pick. He started off slow, but man, he came on at the end and was really good. In the past, I've looked at both of these guys, Cody Barton and Ben Burkervin, and this is really about how well they're coached. And because these guys got in the fourth quarter against the Jets when they were ahead, I think 37-3 at that point. So they got the young guys in there, and they looked really good in a couple of plays. And I just wanted to diagram a couple of those plays. This was, again, I think it was 1st and 10, fourth quarter, and this is the first play these guys were out here. This looks like cover 2 to me because, you had safeties dropping deep, and then you had the 5 underneath guys here playing the underneath routes. But this corner turned and bailed. So it's almost like, he went here with this receiver. So it's almost like they played it 2 on this side and maybe 4 on this side, meaning, you have 4 deep droppers, but corner bails with this guy. And then the nickel, and what happens here in cover 2 is this guy, if you're going to be an underneath dropper, you're going to crowd the number 1 from outside to the left, the nickel number 2 from outside, and then the linebacker number 3, he'll crowd. And what I mean is if he, goes here, you're going to drop here. If he goes out here, then you're going to drop out there, okay? So that's what crowding means. So, and all the action kind of takes place on this side. So what happens here is that the running back does do this. He does kind of flare out here, and the receiver comes more inside. So now these 2 guys pass it off, meaning he started to go with the running back, and then he kind of settles back in with this route, and the nickel settles here where this receiver goes, right? So what Cody does is he kind of turns and runs with him, but then he sees that he's starting to go across the field. And you can see Cody at one point over to Burkervin and tell him, hey, you got a crosser coming your way. So Burkervin has dropped back in his zone. He sees this crosser, and he flips around and covers him. So now Darnold has nowhere to go, and it's mostly because the linebackers and the nickel too did a really good job of crowding these receivers and making sure that they were there so there wasn't an open throw. And then what happens, Cody is probably 10 yards deep, and Sam Darnold, he's probably 10 yards deep. He takes off running for the sidelines, and Cody just comes flying out of his zone and ends up running Sam Darnold, the quarterback, out of bounds for just a plus 3-yard gain. So great speed from 57, great speed from 55, and we all know about 56 because I've talked about him. And let's take a look at that. The next play happens at the 2-minute warning, and in the fourth quarter. So these guys were, they were getting in for sort of, mop-up time, and it was 2nd and 5, actually, looking at my notes there. And it's a run play. So, and I didn't draw up all of the defensive backs, but what they had here is, Cody Barton is playing like the Sam linebacker, middle linebacker, Will linebacker. They're kind of switched because of the strength. But here's what happens on this play. This is Snacks Harrison. The center tries to get out on Brooks and tries to block him. The tackle turns out on Cody Barton. And really, and this will be much better on film, but what you see is Jordan Brooks just attacks this block, and he just attacks with his left shoulder, trying to get underneath that block and clog this gap right here. And he does. And then Cody Barton taking on a tackle. So not only can he run like we saw in the previous play, he gets under this guy's pads and he just totally constricts him there. So the ball carrier ends up running in here. And I think that Snacks Harrison and Jonathan Bullard end up making a tackle right there for either one yard gain or no gain. But you look at the physicality of Cody Barton, the physicality of Jordan Brooks, and then Ben Burkervin is just kind of seeping in here in case anything cuts back. But they end up, it's a really effective run play. So got a pass play from the young guys and a run play. If they do have to move on from Bobby and KJ, which we hope they don't, you've got some really well-coached linebackers that Ken Norton has coached up to do all the things right. And 57, 56, 55, these young guys, these two guys drafted in 2019. Cody and Ben Burkervin. Brooks, of course, the rookie drafted last year, look really good at linebacker. Let's take a look at it on film. Okay, let's take a look at Cody Barton flying out of his zone, coming up and forcing Sam Darnold out of bounds. And here we are. We talked about it was kind of a cover two look with these two guys, deep safeties, and typically, he's going to shadow or drop to the area of or crowd the outside guy, Ben Burkervin, the next guy, and then, Barton is looking in the backfield there. This is number 3 from strong. This is number 2 from strong. This is number 1 from strong. So it's going to be here, here, and here, okay? But it's going to end up changing as we go along. All right, so here you can see, like I mentioned, the corner here just bails on this guy and takes him deep. But then this is the nickel right here. And as the running back goes out and the receiver comes in, they switch off. So nickel does it perfectly. He's crowding this guy. And Cody Barton, you can see he has turned and ran, and you can kind of see him putting his arm up like, hey, pick this deep crosser up. And what Burkervin does right here is he flips around and picks him up. And that's where Darnold wants to go. Now, he's getting pressured, I think, by Alton Robinson there, but still, he wants to hit that deep crosser, and Ben Burkervin took it away. So now you see that Darnold has deserted the pocket and he has put his head down and he is running. And we've talked about quarterbacks being either creators or executors. He's more of an executor. He's not a creative guy. So, Russell Wilson, for example, would, probably look somewhere downfield, maybe run it up inside, but he's just trying to get as much yardage as he can. And here's Cody taking off out of his deep zone. Like I said, he was about 10 yards deep, and he's just closing the ground, trying to get Darnold run out of bounds. And here he is right there pushing him out of bounds. So it looked like to me about a 2-yard gain. I think he got 3 on this, but because he stuck the ball forward, you can see right there. But Cody came all the way from back here and ran him down. So he's got great speed. All right, let's check out this inside run play here. And again, typically, if this is your Sam and this is your middle linebacker and this is your Will, they'd be flopped because you've got strength over here. You've got 2 tight ends, but they saw something so that they called the strength this way, or maybe they made a mistake because you got 3 young guys in there playing. But either way, they know what their assignments are, and they attack blocks in this run play. So you can see it starts right here, and Cody has already taken on this big tackle, which you just saw him run a guy out of bounds from, 25, 30 yards away. But he also is physical at the point of attack. So he takes this tackle on and with his shoulder. And also the same thing with Brooks. You can see that he is trying to get his shoulder under the center and trying to push him back into the backfield. And then Burkervin is just kind of sifting backside to see if there's any kind of cutback. Here you can see that already, Brooks, look at Brooks's hips and his shoulders are squared to the line of scrimmage, and the offensive lineman is turned. Okay, so that's now Cody, not great. I mean, you want to see his numbers on this play, but still, he was able to constrict this gap enough where there's really nowhere to go, especially since Brooks is beating his guy across the face. And here you see, Cody Barton out here. He's done his job, taking on this huge offensive tackle. And that's the thing, playing linebacker, you got to be able to hit guys that are 320, 330 pounds, and you got to be able to drop back in a zone and run a quarterback out of bounds. And then here is BBK just kind of, sealing the deal, making sure nothing cuts back, and then Jordan Brooks is at the bottom of that pile. But really encouraging things to see Again, don't want to move on from Bobby, don't want to move on from KJ, would like to keep everybody, but it's good to know that they have some really good linebackers just waiting to get on the field. And, you know, for a guy like Brooks and Barton, BBK as well, I mean, you got Bobby playing almost 100% of the snaps. KJ was very durable this year, so those guys just didn't get a chance to get on the field. But they did in this game, and it was really good to see them make the plays they did.